welcome to Digit. My name is Yatnesh and today we have the HP Omen 16 AMD Advantage gaming laptop with us. The term AMD Advantage laptop means that through AMD's Smart Access Memory, it allows the CPU to access all of the VRAM in a GPU at once. Now, this is sort of a premium budget gaming laptop, and for the price point, it has some pretty good specs as well. It is powered by an AMD Ryzen 9 5900HX APU based on a 7nm chip. Now the chip's default TDP is around 45 watt, but as we'll see later in this video, it goes pretty higher than that. The laptop also has an AMD Radeon RX 6600M GPU, which is exactly where the AMD Advantage magic happens. The laptop also has 16GB DDR4 RAM running in dual channel mode, which is pretty great. It also has a QHD display and a maximum of 2560 by 1400 pixels in a 16:9 aspect ratio. And I will express my sadness about it later in this video. Now, at around 2.48 kg, this machine is pretty hefty and, might I add, very solidly built. Now, I am not a careful person and I did manage to strike this laptop on all kinds of surfaces around me, and yet there aren't any visible scratches on it. Now, a lot of laptops nowadays claim that their surface is made out of fingerprint or smudge-free material, but so far I have only seen the HP Omen deliver on that promise. Its deck area is comprised of a really smooth matte finish that remains fingerprint-free after hours of usage. The HP Omen 16 has a pretty decent sized trackpad and an adequate keyboard. I said adequate because this laptop takes up the space for a numpad, but there is no numpad, and I am not sure that such a design is advantageous. What I would have loved to see is an overall bigger keyboard instead. Regardless, my main focus was playing video games on this laptop, and that's exactly what I did. A main part of a gaming laptop is the custom firmware it ships with. So let's take a look at what the HP Omen 16 has on offer. For profile and fan control, it comes with the HP Omen Gaming Hub, and you can access it via a dedicated key. For most of my usage, I kept the fans at auto speed and I found it to be pretty sufficient for my use case. Moreover, the fans on this laptop do get pretty loud, and the auto fan control keeps them spinning according to the requirement. The AMD Ryzen 9 chip has a peak temperature or TJ max of around 105 degrees Celsius, but the temperature capped off at low 90s even when I put the laptop through 20 minutes of Cinebench R23 test. And as for benchmarks, I compared the Ryzen 9 chip with an Intel Core i7 and an i9 CPU, and here are the results. Now, one really cool thing about the HP Omen Gaming Hub is how easy it makes it to manage the RGB keys on your keyboard. I tested more than 60 laptops this year, and I can tell you hands down that the HP Omen Gaming Hub objectively has the best and simplest UI to use. Another layer of customization on this laptop comes through AMD's Radeon Center. It essentially has many options that give you a granular control over a lot of things. But my personal opinion would simply be to use it to choose the overall performance profile and to enable the Smart Access Memory option located right here. In terms of bloatware, the laptop does come with McAfee antivirus installed, and I would suggest that you remove it immediately. Now, I did all of my testing on Windows 11 and the AMD Radeon Graphics 22.2.1 graphics driver, which is the latest one at the time of filming this video. The general experience of using this laptop is very snappy. It has a PCIe Gen 3.0 SSD, which has a sequential read and write speed as follows. Now, I know that in 2022 PCIe Gen 4 SSDs are also hitting the market, but honestly, in a premium yet budget oriented machine like this, a Gen 3 SSD will more than easily suffice. Now, I also noted the loading times on some of the popular gaming titles, and here's the speed that you can expect with a Gen 3 SSD. I mean, at the end of the day, would you wait 10 seconds more to play a game or give around 20,000 rupees more? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. Plus, even in gaming, there are not many games that might take advantage of a Gen 4 SSD, and there won't be any until there are not enough PS5s to go into the second-hand market. But who knows when will that happen, because every time a PS5 comes into stock, it goes out of stale in like a single minute. And then you go on to ask your friend about it, "Ki, dude, do you have a PS5 or not?" And he says, "Ki, bro, I don't have any." I mean, how it can be ki PS5 gets sold within a single minute and yet nobody has any units to play with? I mean, क्या मजाक चल रहा है? Sorry about that tangent, let's move on with the review. I tested the temperatures in two scenarios, under extreme benchmarking and under idle conditions. So after a 20-minute round of Cinebench R23 test, here's what the CPU temps looked like. Throughout most of the program, the fans were running at high speeds and the CPU's core temperature reached a maximum point of 96 degrees Celsius, which is around 9 degrees less than the TJ max. However, these temperatures were just normal spikes that occurred at a regular interval. During most of the operation, the temperature remained at around 90 degrees. During the same test, the CPU drew a maximum power of 95 watts. Now, just like the temps, the higher power draws occurred at a regular interval in spikes throughout the test. And the huge drop that you are seeing on your screen is when the first round of the R23 test ended and I restarted it for the next one. And on your extreme right, you can see that under idle conditions, the CPU only drew a maximum of 20 watts power and remained under 10 watts during most of the idle time, which is pretty good for a gaming laptop with such high specs. All of this tells us that the laptop is pretty powerful but remains within its thermal limits. All in all, it just means that the cooling on this device works flawlessly. I also tested the laptop's battery and here's what I found. Before I move on to the gaming test, let's just take a quick look at this laptop's display. Now, I usually test a laptop screen for three things: the brightness, the color space coverage and the color accuracy, which also tells us whether you can use this laptop screen for professional grade color correction or not. In terms of brightness, the laptop scored around 330 nits. Also, it covers these color spaces. And finally, it is not very color accurate. I mean, the average delta E value should be around 2 or 1 for it to be a highly color accurate display, but even right now it is fairly decent. But the biggest fault in this laptop's display is that it is still a 16:9 ratio screen and not a 16:10 aspect ratio display. You see, having that extra height sounds very small, but it makes a huge difference. I've been using the Lenovo Legion 5 Pro for quite a few days and now I find it hard to switch to any other 16:9 ratio screen laptop. Chalo, with all that out of the way, let's move on to the thing which we were all waiting for: gaming. First off, here are some benchmarks. I ran all these titles in 1080p resolution and at high settings. You can also see its direct comparison with the Lenovo Legion 5 Pro equipped with an AMD Ryzen 7 and an overclocked RTX 3060. I also tested the latest God of War on this device, but considering that it's an action adventure title, I tried to run it at an unlocked and locked frame rate, two separate times. You can see here how it performed in an unlocked frame rate section. The FPS goes pretty high, but it also starts to dip in the 50s in some scenarios. For the locked frame rate, my objective was to get a stable 60 FPS in all scenarios possible. I also compared it with the Lenovo Legion 5 Pro side by side to see which one performed better. Initially, the frame did drop to 55 FPS in some areas, so then I turned on the Nvidia DLSS and AMD FSR respectively, and a solid 60 FPS throughout now was easily possible. However, in terms of visual fidelity, I would still prefer Nvidia's DLSS over AMD's FSR. During intense gaming, the GPU temperature did reach mid-80s, which is good enough. As for the CPU, I doubt that any modern AAA game will trouble this bad boy, because with 8 cores and 16 threads, I am pretty sure it can handle every demanding gaming title out there. In terms of benchmarks, here's how the GPU performed. I compared it with the RTX 3060 and another RTX 3070 alongside an AMD Radeon RX 6800M, which is also another AMD Advantage laptop. In terms of pure benchmarks, the 6600M does beat out the RTX 3060, but battles are not won by pure benchmarks alone. You see, the RTX 3060 has Nvidia DLSS on its side, which as of making this video is a pretty compelling option when you compare it to AMD's FSR. However, the 6600M comes with 8GB GDDR6 VRAM, but the RTX 3060 is unfortunately stuck with only 6GB of GDDR6 VRAM, which could prove to be a bottleneck in the near future. So my professional opinion would be to go with the AMD Radeon 6600M as a GPU compared to the RTX 3060. If you want a future-proof yet somewhat budget-oriented laptop, then the HP Omen 16 AMD Advantage Edition is the machine you should get. You can easily expect 1440p 60 fps gaming from this device on most modern titles. Plus AMD's FSR also adds an extra 2 to 3 years of future proofing for this laptop's GPU. So does its 8GB GDDR6 VRAM along with dual channel memory and a 165Hz display. I think that the HP Omen 16 is worth spending your money on if you're in the market for a capable yet future-proof gaming laptop. So that was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any queries, drop them down in the comment section below. I'll be sure to reply to them. And मुझे अब बहुत भूख लग रही है, मेरा काम हो गया तो मैं चलता हूँ खाने. I'll see you guys next time. Yeah.